The 1970s were a golden era for filmmaking, and when it came to World War II movies, this decade delivered some absolute classics. These films didn't just recount history, they brought it to life with gritty realism, complex characters, and stories that still resonate today. Here are some of the best World War II movies from the 1970s that you should definitely check out. French film icon Alain Delon starred as the eponymous dishonest art dealer who sets out to capitalize on World War II by taking advantage of French Jews in a hurry to sell their artwork in order to flee the country as it becomes occupied by the Nazis in Mr. Klein. Enjoying a life of extravagance and luxury, Robert Klein finds his cushy existence upended when he is mistaken for a Jewish man of the same name and falls under the suspicion of the authorities, and he races against the clock to clear his name before he becomes targeted in the Holocaust. Steven Spielberg directed the underappreciated war comedy 1941, centering on a group of anxiety-ridden California residents as they fearfully prepare for a Japanese invasion following the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor. John Belushi headlines the film as Captain Wild Bill Kelso, a frenzied National Guard pilot searching for Japanese forces and Hollywood legends like Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, and Christopher Lee, as soldiers on high alert as they get ready to officially enter World War II. Based on the Kurt Vonnegut novel of the same name, Slaughterhouse-Five tells the spellbinding story of how Billy Pilgrim, Michael Sachs, became unstuck in time as the New York optometrist finds himself traveling through time and reliving his past experience as a soldier fighting behind enemy lines in Belgium at the height of World War II. The engrossing sci-fi dramedy is a faithful adaptation of its subject source and chronicles Pilgrim's experiences as a prisoner of war and the atrocities he witnessed during the firebombing of Dresden. Vonnegut himself was thoroughly impressed with director George Roy Hill's riveting interpretation, stating that the filmmaker made a flawless translation of his novel to the silver screen. Set during the Battle of France and Normandy landings, the black and white war drama Overlord focuses on young British soldier Thomas Beddoes and chronicles the horrors the sensitive everyman witnessed while on the battlefield, depicting his struggles during training camp and subsequent involvement in the deadly D-Day invasion. Director Stuart Cooper declared, "Overlord is not about military heroics. On the contrary, it is about the bleakness of sacrifice." In Hellboats, James Franciscus, beneath the Planet of the Apes, stars as an American attack boat commander serving with the British Royal Navy in the Mediterranean in 1942. He is assigned to a secret mission to destroy a Nazi submarine base in nearby Sicily, only to discover the woman he has fallen in love with is the wife of his superior officer. It's more than a little melodramatic, but combat involving motor torpedo boats were rarely featured in World War II films, giving this film an original feel. Plus, any James Franciscus film is worth watching. Adapted from a best-selling novel, Jacob the Liar takes place during the Holocaust in Nazi-occupied Poland and follows Polish Jew as he attempts to survive in a Jewish ghetto, following the man's efforts to boost the morale of his neighbors and friends after overhearing news through the German officers that Russian forces are closing in on the Nazis. The protagonist decides to embellish the details and lies about having a radio, a major crime in the ghetto, and makes up stories to try and keep his fellow survivors' hopes alive, escalating his deception along the way. Gently, softly, without cheap pathos and sentimentality, this film tells a great story about people in the middle of horror. There have been plenty of movies about Allied prisoners of war escaping their imprisonment, but the McKenzie Break flips the script. In this 1970 drama, Brian Keith plays an Irish officer in the British Army who must stop German prisoners suspected of planning an escape from an Allied POW camp in Scotland. Keith must outwit the Germans' highest-ranking prisoner, a U-boat commander who seems to be planning the break. The film is directed by Lamont Johnson, who also directed the 1980s cult classic Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. Cliff Robertson plays an American translator who joins Michael Caine and a British strike team on a mission to destroy a Japanese communication station. It's an underrated, gritty, and action-packed war film that's definitely worth a watch. Keep an eye out for Denholm Elliott, Raiders of the Lost Ark, in a key supporting role. It's hard to follow up a classic, as this movie proves. The film is a sequel to 1961's The Guns of Navarone, which starred Gregory Peck, David Niven, and Richard Harris. Rather than remake the film or introduce new characters, producers chose to recast characters. Peck was recast with the great Robert Shaw, Harris was replaced with Harrison Ford, and Niven was replaced with Edward Fox. While Force 10 isn't as good as its predecessor, it's a very solid war film that benefits from nostalgia and centers on Ford and Shaw blowing up a dam to take out a German bridge. In 1977's MacArthur, Gregory Peck gives a superb performance as the legendary general, although the script is somewhat bland, a by-the-numbers affair that isn't as insightful as it should have been. The film follows the career of Douglas MacArthur from the triumph of World War II through to the Korean War and his unceremonious firing by President Harry Truman. Peck earned a Golden Globe nomination as Best Actor, and the film works best as a visual history lesson.